This story starts off with the protagonist narrating that someone told him about the world before he was born, the world before the black hole appeared. The black hole swallowed people and monsters came from it. Before this phenomenon occurred, everything was normal. We then see a helicopter reporting on the state of the black hole. They report that the black hole is still increasing in size. The size of the black hole is unprecedented. The old force has already tried responding, but the sheer numbers of the monsters are disrupting the rescue of the citizens. As chaos takes place, the protagonist narrates that this story is about an abnormal world. We get to know that a black hole is a black gate that communicates with another world. On the top of the sky, on top of the ocean, on top of the ground, it appeared everywhere and anywhere in this world. And from the black holes, life forms that were not human emerged. The invaders started massacring humans, and when the world started turning into hell, a special species showed up. Telekinesis, utterance, frost, lightning. There were people that could use various powers. They are called metahumans. People who wouldn't die even if their arms were cut or their organs were pierced. They are called immortals. People who could change forms into shapes such as bears or wolves. They are called shapeshifters, and ordinary humans that could use special skills, mages. Thanks to the metahumans who fought back against the enemies from the black hole, the world found peace again, and people called the year where the gate appeared the terrible year. And as the situation ended, people's attention went to the special species. The fears towards them led to the separating of special and normal humans. Through that process, immortals came to belong to the government, and the shapeshifters conspired with a worldwide company. The metahumans made their own organization and hid themselves with magic. 20 years after the terrible year, present day, they are still somewhere, hiding that they are special species living amongst normal people. The protagonist, Guang's father, then calls to him and told him that he has something to tell him, and he should listen and don't be shocked. We also get to know that the protagonist's name is Guang. He then tells Guang that him, Guang, is an immortal. Guang stares at him first before asking him what he say. He then explains that him himself is an immortal, so his blood should have passed on. Guang then asks him why is he suddenly saying this while buying spring onions. His father replied saying he shouldn't tell anyone, not even his mother knows. Guang then says that he's telling him this in the middle of a supermarket. I said it quietly, so it's fine, his father replied. Guang then questions him saying that an immortal has clear skin and a pretty face. His father told him that he's correct, but the problem is, he doesn't take after him much, but he's still an immortal. His father continued to elaborate that an immortal blood will awaken on one's 24th birthday. He then tells Guang that it's tonight around 11 p.m. Guang then questions him about saying something like that so calmly. He then tells Guang that they're supposed to get garlic as well. Guang replied, saying yeah, but not the minced ones cause his mother wants to do it herself. His father responded saying he'll probably have to peel them, and Guang agreed. His father then tells him not to tell his mother, because she doesn't know he's an immortal, and if she finds out he might get divorced. Guang then tells him that they should talk outside. We see Guang carrying all the grocery bags. His father notices and says that he's pretty strong, adding that immortals are born with low strength. He then asks if it's because he exercises a lot. Guang laughs while thinking to himself that he doesn't really work out that much, thinking that his strength is probably from that, his first secret. As they return home, he narrates that he has something he's kept even before he learned about being an immortal today, his mother being a shapeshifter. His mother then welcomes them back, asking if they brought the garlic. The father replied saying of course. She then asks if it's the non-diced ones, and the father replied saying of course. They then starts kissing, which disgusts the protagonist, prompting Guang to tell them that they can't do that while he's there. We then get a flashback of 2 years ago when Guang found out his mother is a shapeshifter. Guang asks her if she can shapeshift into Sailor Moon. She replied, saying she can also shapeshift into Saint Tail. After realizing that his mother isn't joking, he shouts, asking her if she wasn't joking when she said she is a shapeshifter. She replied saying yes I am and you are too. She then tells him that shapeshifters awaken at 18, saying he'll probably start to awaken tonight. He replied saying that it's all too sudden. She then tells him to keep it a secret from his father, telling him to never tell his father. We then return back to the present. His parents ask what gift he wants. He replied saying it's fine. They continue to ask him if he really doesn't want anything and he shouldn't regret it later. He replied, saying he's already very thankful to them for giving birth to him. His mother replied, saying he talks pretty just like his father. and the father replied saying his personality is just good, like his mother. They then agreed that he's just like the both of them. He then thinks to himself, immortal father and shapeshifter mother, I have quite the special parents. But why are the two of them hiding their identities from each other? He then tells his parents to sleep well, and they replied saying the same to him. We then see him relaxing in his bed. He thinks to himself that it'll be 11 p.m. soon, and according to his father, he'll awaken as an immortal at 11. We then get a flashback to when him and his father was walking home. He asks his father if it'll hurt when he becomes an awaken. His father replied saying it was okay for him when he awakened. He felt his blood suddenly warming up, then cooling down. As soon as he felt a little cold, his 5 senses became a lot sharper than before. Guang then asked if it didn't hurt, and his father replied, saying it didn't. He then thinks to himself that it felt like he was dying when he awakened as a shapeshifter. He then says to his father that his mother is just human, asking if he'll really awaken. His father replied, saying he will, explaining that the blood of an immortal is thicker than a human's. His father was about to tell him something but then said, never mind because it won't matter. We then return to the present. He thinks to himself, is it possible to awaken as an immortal when he's already awakened as a shapeshifter? Wondering what he should tell his father if he doesn't awaken, he then decides to go to sleep. A little while later we see him in pain. As he's in pain he says to himself that he thought his father said it wouldn't hurt. The scene then shifts to 2 years ago. We see Guang looking in the bathroom mirror and admiring his body's changes after the awakening as in shapeshifter. He thinks to himself while gleeing that all he did was awaken, but the muscles in his body changed so drastically. His mother then peeks in and asks him if he likes it, which surprises Guang. He wraps his hands around himself while asking her why doesn't she knock first. She replied saying she just wanted to see if he was doing okay, adding that he looks fine. She then asks him how it feels to be a shapeshifter. He replied saying he feels like he has a lot more energy than before, and his hearing and smelling is more sensitive as well. He then asked her why she didn't tell him. She replied saying she's not sure what he means. He then explains that when he was awakening, he would lose all the hair on his body, throw up blood countless times, and feel like all his muscles are ripping apart, asking why didn't she tell him he'd feel so much pain. She then says to him that it's not like telling him would have made a difference. He then argued that he could have prepared himself mentally. He then worriedly asked if it's really done, asking if there won't be like a second or third awakening. She replied, saying don't worry there isn't, because it's not like a game. Guang then let out a sigh of relief and says that he doesn't ever want to experience pain like that again. The scene then shifts back to the present where he's still feeling pain. Time then passes to morning. We see him looking in the bathroom mirror and pinching himself while thinking that it still hurts the same, even though he's an immortal now. Nothing appearance-wise really changed, but senses. He can see well in the dark and all around senses has increased, especially his hearing has become super sensitive. We see that noises from far away has become a problem for him. He then tries to calm himself down, thinking that he's controlled his body plenty of times as a shapeshifter. If he continuously make himself think that his ears are far away, we then see that he has lowered his hearing sensitivity. He then breathes a sigh of relief and thought to himself that it really feels like he's awakened as an immortal now, wondering if he'll be able to hide it. His parents then calls for him, saying he should come and eat. He responded saying he's coming. We then see him staring at his food and asking if this is breakfast. He then adds that he sure is lucky. His mother then tells him that she'll make more if it's not enough. He thinks to himself that now that he's given it a thought, their family eats a lot, adding that he heard that shapeshifters need more energy than the average person. But his father also eats a lot, leaving him to wonder if all special species just eat a lot. His father then points out that this is less food than usual, asking if she's okay. His mother replied, saying there's rice in the rice cooker cooking right now. Guang then thinks to himself that they don't suspect each other at all despite this. The father then remembers something and calls Guang. He then tells him to prepare for the civil service exams. This surprised both Guang and his mother. Guang then asks what he means by civil service, while his mother asks. So suddenly, his father then tells them that there's a good opportunity that came Guang's way. His mother then asks, what is it? Saying he should go to college, adding that he's 20 now. His father refutes saying college isn't that important. The skills a person has is more important. A civil service job is nice, adding that he has one too. The mother disagrees, saying that she's not saying it's bad to have one. She just doesn't want to see him go into a Goshiwan so early, all while Guang just sits there staring at both of them. We also get to know that Goshiwan is an accommodation in Korea for those preparing for important exams, usually a very small room. His father then says that there's no need for him to go to Goshiwan because he's smart. Guang thinks to himself that they rarely disagree with each other, thinking that immortals usually have government-related jobs, so his father is probably trying to send him to those positions. But his mother has a different plan. We then get a flashback. We see him doing chin-ups. He says that he could barely do 2 chin-ups before, and now he's not even out of breath doing 15. His mother then tells him that shapeshifters have 3 times the strength of a normal person. Guang then says, "So there was a reason she's so strong then," his mother replied, saying regular training is also a factor, of course. She then tells him that there's one more thing shapeshifters are stronger in other than just physical strength. Guang then asks what it is. She then explains that it's instinct. A shapeshifter's instinct is a lot stronger than a normal person's. She then warns him that there will be many times in his life where he'll be controlled by his instincts. Guang replied, saying he doesn't really feel it though. His mother then tells him that it's like that now, but there will be situation where it will be a problem when he's out in the real world, adding that it's a must to train to control his instincts, so she wants him to go to college and get hired at a company. Guang then asks why a company. She then tells him that his grandfather has connections in an industry that works with shapeshifters. Just get into a normal college, then she can get him in there, saying that he'll be able to get basic training for shapeshifters there. We then return back to the present. His parents then agreed that they should ask what he wants instead of talking amongst themselves, which catches him off guard. His father then says, "Let's ask Guang," which makes Guang say, "Me." While being confused, his mother agrees and asks him if he wants to become a civil servant. He then thinks to himself that of course there's something he wants to do. Now that he's thinking about it, he has never told them. He then tells them that he wants to go to UDT, also known as Underwater Demolition Team. His parents just blankly stare at him. His mother then angrily whispers to him if he really wants to go to a normal military with his skills, whispering that he should have conscience. His father then starts to think about the military. His mother then says that he hasn't thought about it deeply. Guang replied, telling his mother that he's 20, saying he can think like an adult now. His mother then angrily whispers to him that she thinks he's gone out of his mind, making him afraid. His father then says that being a soldier is not bad. He then asks Guang if he's doing it just for looks. Guang replied, saying that too. His father then says that's good as well, adding that it'd be more weird if a mere 20 years old was already set on fighting for his country. His mother tried to convince his father otherwise, but his father assures her that it's fine. Not all soldiers get deployed to Somalia and fight pirates, adding that Guang can have a fine life after training and assignment. He'll have to go into the military anyway at some point. It would be better if he goes as an officer. His mother then agrees and says if his father says so. While Guang sits there thinking to himself that his father is good when it comes to convincing his mother, he then asks if he can do it then. His mother replied saying yes, but not right now. He then says yes he know. College first. But before he could finish his sentence, his father says, no, he'll do civil service exam, which lead Guang to wonder if his father is sponsored by Eduwil. His father then tells him that if he passed the exam, he can just delay his position and enter the military, if he doesn't want to. He can just do something with the defense industry. It's probably a bonus point if he go as an officer. His mother then asks if it works like that, and his father replied saying yes. Guang then thinks to himself that logically it doesn't sound possible, but if it's his father, he can make it happen since he works for the country. Guang then tells his parents that he'll take the exam. His father then says to him that he can't say it's difficult, but it's not easy enough that he can prepare for it while fooling around, Guang replied, saying it's no problem. His father then tells him to leave his weekends free, saying there's someone in Hwaseong, Gyeonggi, that will give him intensive tutoring. At first Guang agrees, but then him and his mother got confused as to what his father means. The scene then shifts to a bus stop. He remembers his father saying, there's someone I know there. He works the farms there, but he really doesn't want to come to the city. Guang then thinks to himself, how good is he that he has to come all the way here to get tutoring, adding that he never expected to take the civil service exam, but his final goal is UDT. As he looks at his phone, he thinks to himself, in truth, what he wanted to be wasn't a soldier. He wanted to be something better. We then get to know about a different phenomenon, white hole. a gate that appeared not long after the International Government Coalition Old Force was created. If a black hole is where you come out, a white hole is where you enter, meaning they could enter the invaders' world called the other side. And in that world, there are new metals that they don't have at Earth, new plants, and even new animals. It's full of new resources. Guang then thinks to himself that Earth black holes are things of the past now, but humanity is still fighting each other to find new resources, and the ones that get sent to those fights are mostly shapeshifters. Their outstanding strength and exercise ability make them great fighters. His mother didn't want him in those fights, so he compromised. He'll be granting her wishes and also his to fight by being a soldier. We then see someone on a phone talking to Guang's father. He confusingly asks if the father sent his son to him. After hearing about the exam from Guang's father, he understood where Guang's father wanted Guang to go. He then tells Guang's father to leave it to him, saying that he won't go easy on Guang. He'll educate him properly. A little while later we see the man and Guang awkwardly looking at each other. The man then asks what he is. Guang replied saying he's Yu Guangik, the son of Yu Yanho, his father. The man then says he's not talking about that. He then asks Guang if he's an immortal, pointing out that he's built well. Guang replied, saying it's probably because he has mixed blood. The man then says that immortals have thick blood, especially considering who his father is, asking how could human blood mix with it. Guang then says to him that that's because his mother blood is thick as well. The man then calls him unique. He then says they should get going. Guang asks him where. The man then says, "What do you mean where? You said you're here to get tutored?" Guang then says that's correct. He then thinks to himself that after following his father's words, the place he arrived at to prepare for the civil service exam was a mountain deep inside the countryside, near Hwaseong in Gyeonggi province, and the nature man in front of him seems to be his tutor. Guang then thought to himself that maybe because the man is an immortal, his face is pretty clean and handsome. He then asks the man if there is a temple here or something. The man replied, asking what kind of nonsense he's sprouting all of a sudden. Guang then wonders to himself, why are they going towards the mountain? The man then stops and says, they've arrived. We see a house, chopped firewood and other weaponry. Guang then thinks to himself, just what is his father trying to teach him? The man then asks him if he's awakened while holding a stick. Guang answered, yes. The man asks if he's tested it. Guang replied, saying he's tried cutting his wrists with a cutting knife. There was a wound, but it healed fast. The man then asks if he knows the concept behind healing injuries in their bodies. Guang answered, nope. The man then says him neither. Guang then asks what? The man then tells him to forget it and listen. Even if we don't know that, we know the basics behind healing properties. The man then starts drawing and explains that first, health. A healthy immortal has good healing power. Second, sense. If you are sensitive, you feel more pain, but it allows you to quickly recognize it and better control it. Basically, you'll notice quickly when a bone goes wrong or something. To conclude, training in health and sense can raise your healing power. Guang answers yes while thinking to himself that he can't understand those drawings at all. The man then asks him if he has any questions. Guang replied, saying he doesn't understand one thing. The man asks, what is it? Guang then points at a trail of knife sticking up from the ground and asks, what does any of this has to do with him having to run through that? The man replied, saying he's training his health and learning how to control an immortal body. Guang then says no, he still doesn't get it. The man then gets annoyed and says, why do you talk so much? You wanted to take the exam, right? Guang replied, saying yes, he wanted to take the exam, asking if they aren't going to study. The man replied, saying this is studying. Guang then tells him that the study he knows is done with a pen and paper. The man then asks what he's talking about, telling him that he's going to apply to Immortal Special Forces. Guang then asks what that is. The man then asks him if his father never told him. Guang replied saying he just heard it was a civil service exam. The man then tells him that it's similar to being a soldier in the military. Guang then thought to himself, Dad, what about the UDT? The man then asks him if he's going to run through it or not. If not, he should leave. Guang then thought to himself that he'll probably only be able to do what he wants after he passed that exam. He then says he'll do it. The man tells him to wait. If he doesn't want to ruin his clothes, he should take off his shoes and change into the short pants he's holding. Guang then do as he says, and thought to himself that nothing really has changed. Just the subject of the exam turned out to be something different from what he expected. As he stands in front the track of knives, the man tells him to hurry up and run. His neck is going to give out waiting. Guang then takes in a deep breath and starts running. Immediately as he starts, he cries out in agony. The man shouts that he should not rest, asking if he's going to stop and relax while an enemy chases him. Guang then starts cursing because of the amount of pain he's feeling. After a while, we see him on the ground with his bloodied foot saying, "Just kill him instead." We see blue light emitting from his foot, which is his immortal recovery powers. The man then says to him, "You intentionally dodged some of the blades in the middle, right? You have good reflexes. The other guys couldn't dodge anything at all." The man then notices something. He then says that Guang's healing power is amazing too. The man then tells him that his regeneration gets faster every time he heals from an injury, telling him to don't avoid the blades, keep stepping on them, make the wounds bigger, step hard on them on purpose and cut off a leg. Guang then thinks to himself that this is bullshit, calling the man a crazy bastard in his mind. The man then tells him to stop overreacting and run. As Guang is running, the man thinks to himself, "What is this guy?" Guang then stops running and drops to rest. The man then says to him that he's an immortal. He won't die from something like that, so he should get up and run again. Guang then asks, "How much longer do I have to do this?" The man replied, saying until he experiences shock. Once he experiences it for the first time, his pain threshold will increase. This blade setup prepares him for the panic from fear or concussions on the battlefield. The man then asks him, "Why are you not getting a shock?" Asking if it doesn't hurt. Guang then gets mad and shouts that it hurts like shit. He then thinks to himself that he has the body of a shapeshifter before becoming immortal. And since shapeshifters have strong bodies, something like this will never give him a shock, even if he do it for a lifetime. He then asks the man if there's anything else he can do to pass besides doing this. The man then asks, "How fast can you run 50 meters? Guang replied, saying around 6 seconds. The man then tells him that this distance is exactly 50 meters. If he pass it within 6 seconds, then he'll pass the blade setup training. Guang then asks, "Just within 6 seconds?" The man says, "Yeah." Guang agrees, and says no, going back on words later. Guang then thinks to himself that he said he can run 50 meters in 6 seconds. But that's when he run at a moderate pace. It will hurt. But if he block his senses as much as possible, and run as fast as he can, 6 seconds will be easy. He then starts running without hesitation, and without crying in pain, which surprises the man. We see him quickly sprinting through the blades. As he finishes the run, he thinks to himself that it was definitely within 6 seconds. The man then laughs and calls Guang an interesting guy. He then tells Guang to run it again. Guang asks if it was not within 6 seconds. The man replied saying he didn't time it, which made Guang cursed in his mind. Afterwards, the man tells Guang that they'll start the second training. He then hands Guang some kind of metal collar. Guang asks, "What is this?" asking if it's a dog collar. The man replied saying that he'll need it for the second training. The man then tells him to put it on his neck. As Guang puts it on, he says, "I feel uneasy. What are we going to do?" The man replied saying breath-holding training, which caught Guang off guard. Guang then says in a shaky voice, "Then, this is..." The man then says, "It's what he's thinking," adding that when he pressed this button in his hand, his neck will be strangled. Guang then quickly undo it, which prompts the man to cut his sentence and tells him no to undoing it, and put it back on, adding that he's run through the field of knives. He's not going to just go home now, right? Guang then frustratingly asks, "Can't I just go underwater to hold my breath?" The man then asks him if he thinks that'll be enough, saying that this training is for enduring strangulation as well. It's over if you pass out during combat. Just like with the blade setup, you focus a lot on passing out. After the terrible year in war against special species, normal people learned how to face us, so the opposite should work as well. We used to train by hanging ourselves on the trees. The world has gotten better. Guang then thinks to himself, "Don't say it got better from stuff like that." He then puts on the collar and asks, "What's the condition to pass?" The man replied, saying none. He's going to pass out, but he should endure for at least 5 minutes. Guang then says, "All right." The man then advised him not to attempt to undo the necklace by force or steal the remote, unless he wants a hole in his chest. But that might be training too, though. Guang then says, "Understood." The man then asks if he's ready, and Guang replied saying yes. The man then pressed the button. We see it starts to strangle Guang immediately. We see him trying to endure it. After a little while he tries to take it off. The man slaps him on his hand with a stick and says no, saying, "I see you can still handle it. But if you don't, you can just pass out." Guang then thinks to himself that when the hell will it end? He's sure 5 minutes passed a long time ago. He then starts to get dizzy, thinking that his consciousness is at its limit. As his head falls down, his neck tenses up, and his eyes starts to faintly glow. The collar then stops working and Guang starts to bleed. The man wonders why it stopped working, wondering if the battery died. Guang then throws the collar off his neck and says he almost died. The man then tells him that he won't die. Guang then asks, "We're not doing this again just because I didn't pass out, right?" "I definitely passed 5 minutes." The man then says he passed 5 minutes. The time he endured is exactly 12 minutes and 47 seconds, which leaves Guang speechless. He then thinks to himself that the man said the record was 8 minutes. He should blame something. He then tries to blame his record on something. But after seeing the look on the man's face, he says, "Please don't look at me the way a child looks at a new fun toy." The man then tells him that they should rest for the day, and Guang needs to eat. Guang then asks the man if he's going to feed him. The man replied, saying it's inefficient to work while starving. You need to be healthy as well. Guang then asks, "Is there anything I can help with?" The man tells him to just stay seated. Guang then thinks to himself that it's not like he know how to cook. He should just stay still. After a while the food is ready and the man tells him to eat up. We see that the food is purple, looks poisonous and off. Guang stares at the food in shock. He then asks the man what's in it. The man answers saying if he really wants to know. Guang replied, saying not really. We then see him bathing while thinking that he'll have to do the cooking next time, and he should learn how to cook from his mom when he gets back. Before that, he need to ask his father about this. He would call him right away, but phones aren't allowed, so his got confiscated. He then gets out while saying he's tired and wants to sleep well, at least. We then see his bed being a hard-looking pillow and a piece of cloth with a cover. He stares at it in disbelief. Then a fly flies by him, and he killed it and calls the man, asking if he has no lights. The man replied, saying bugs will come in if there's light. It's not even that troublesome. Guang reluctantly agrees. He then lies down. The man tells him that it's training to kill your sense of touch, adding that a good sense of touch makes you feel unsettling sensations much more than others. At first you will probably be unable to sleep a wink because of how uncomfortable. But before the man could finish his sentence, he realized something. Guang is sound asleep. The time then switches to morning. The man wakes Guang up for breakfast. Once again we see that something is wrong with the food. Guang sighs and gives thanks for the meal. The man then tells him that immortals consume a lot of energy so he should eat up, and Guang replied saying all right. He then asked the man what training are they doing today. The man replied, saying cliff diving. Guang then says, something insane again. The man then tells him, holding your breath mid-air, controlling your senses for the upcoming impact. Guang then says, based on today's and yesterday's training, the biggest thing an immortal should be careful of in a fight is shock and pressure from a strong impact that knocks you unconscious, right? The man replied, saying yes. And one more thing. You have to be careful of your mobility getting lower when your legs get cut. Therefore, arms are the shield of an immortal. Offer your arm to someone going for a hit that'd make you unable to act. If they go for the head or leg, for example. Also, you should be made careful of a knife than a gun, and you must also be wary of claymores and mines. Guang replied saying okay while thinking to himself that all the examples are outdated. Nowadays the enemies are from another world. The man then asked him what is he doing picking at his food, telling him to eat it fast so they can go and train. Guang then narrates that just like that, he finished all the training, left, and took the bus home the next day. We see him inside the bus on the phone. He asks his father if this was really the right place. His father then asks why, asking if something happened. Guang replied, saying the man made him dive off a mountain. His father then tells him that it's okay. He's immortal. He won't die that easily, so he can be rough with his body. That's how he'll find his body's limits. Guang then thinks to himself that all he found out was that his body is durable. He didn't pass out a single time. His father then tells him well done. He should get a good rest at home. Guang then asks what's the exam he's taking. His father was about to tell him, but someone called for help. His father then tells him that he has to hang up, and they'll talk later. Guang then thinks to himself, well, nothing will change even if I hear it now. Let's rest for today like father said. He then starts imagining what he'll do once he reaches home. First he'll take a shower, play some PS5, eat dinner made by his mother, and sleep in his room without mosquitoes for around 12 hours, thinking to himself that it's the perfect plan. But as he got home, his mother tell him to shower later. They have somewhere to go. The revolution hits Guang that his perfect plan is shattered. Well, this is where this video ends. If you enjoyed and wish to see more, then please leave a like and hit the subscribe button and leave a feedback. Thank you.